Tonight, it's TheRebel.media's one-year anniversary, and of course, we're under attack. It's February 16th, and you're watching The Ezra Levant Show.
Why should others go to jail when you're the biggest carbon consumer I know?
There's 8,500 customers here, and you won't give them an answer.
You come here once a year with a sign, and you feel morally superior.
The only thing I have to say to the government about why I publish it is because it's my bloody right to do so.
Can you believe it? A year ago today, TheRebel.media was born. The Sun News Network had shut down after 4 great years. Government regulators at the CRTC and the cable company oligopoly saw to that. So a handful of us gathered at my house to talk about keeping the spirit of Sun News alive in a place that government regulators and crony capitalists from the cable companies haven't conquered yet, namely the internet. Our first video was literally recorded in my living room. I was a bit sheepish about how amateur that looked, but I also knew that wouldn't last for long. In a way, I wanted to mark our lowly first step to measure our growth. And soon we were working out of a real studio. And then a few months later, with the generosity of our viewers, we actually built a studio, a tiny one, but at least it means we're not in my living room anymore or recording our videos on the street in wintertime. We've grown from that first day with 8 people to double that size now. There's now so much stuff on our website, so many videos and written news stories a day, I honestly can't even read it all. Here, let me give you some of our latest statistics. In the past year, we've produced 2,720 videos, uploaded to YouTube, every one of them. 80,900 people have subscribed to our YouTube channel, so they don't miss a single one. On our main website, we have more than 201,000 people who have given us their email address so we can stay in touch with them. Of course, you don't have to give us your email address to come and visit the site anytime. And over the past 365 days, 6.90 million different people have been to our website, 15.6 million times collectively. Our videos have been viewed 24.8 million times. I know that's a lot of numbers I'm throwing at you. Let me give you just 2 more, the 2 biggest numbers. 30.5 million page views of our website. Just think about that. And here's the biggest number of all, 108 million minutes of video have been watched. Okay, no more statistics. I just wanted to brag for a minute. Forgive me. My point is, we're big, bigger than I ever thought we would be. And more than that, as you can see, we know a lot more about how we're doing. At Sun News, we didn't know who was watching or what they liked or where they were from or any details like that. So it was a lot of guessing as to what people liked and what they didn't. Now we know because of the internet, and that helps us choose what stories we cover. Our original motto was fearless. I thought that summed up our editorial philosophy pretty well. We're unafraid of political correctness, mainly, unafraid of being called names by the fancy people, the elites, whether in politics or media or academia. I think fear of being called politically incorrect is a huge threat to the West these days because it makes so many people silent in the face of some of the biggest challenges to our society. And more, I use the motto, the other side of the story. Because while the mainstream media sometimes does talk about prickly things like mass Muslim migration to Europe, for example, they only tell one side of the story. In fact, sometimes it feels like the mainstream media are actually practicing anti-journalism or unjournalism, that they work harder not to cover certain stories than they do to positively cover them. In Europe, the first 5 days of the cover-up of the mass sexual assaults in Cologne, Germany are a perfect example. In Canada, just look at the total media blackout of our scoop the other day, showing that Omar Khadr, the al-Qaeda terrorist, is making secret video phone calls to other al-Qaeda supporters overseas. Incredible scoop, huge story, dead silence by the other media because it upsets their politically correct narrative. That's just one of a dozen examples. So today's our anniversary of trying to be fearless and covering the news the other guys won't and giving you the other side of the story. And so it is a fitting coincidence on this anniversary day that we are faced with an existential threat that Rachel Notley, the Premier of Alberta, has ordered armed sheriffs to block our reporters from the Alberta legislature or any other government building. And they have ordered the Justice Department to send us a letter declaring that no one even connected with us is considered a journalist by the government. I mean, that's foolish. That's unconstitutional. We're going to fight it, as you know. And in a moment, I'll talk with Sheila Gunn Reid, our Alberta bureau chief, who is the chief target of this fatwa from Rachel Notley. But really, what better proof that we're living up to our editorial mission than so irritating the Notley NDP that they seek to smash us and ban us and bar us with armed guards and threaten us with lawyers? What better endorsement for what we're doing than their reaction? So thank you for being amongst the millions of people who have come to The Rebel for our distinctive blend of news, opinion, and activism. Yes, it's journalism. In fact, being told by the NDP that you're not a journalist is pretty much the finest accreditation you can ever receive. Then, in fact, you are a journalist. So thank you for your support. Thank you to our hardworking team for a year of great service and loyalty and effort and passion. And a very special thank you to our generous crowdfunders who have made all of this possible because of your contributions. We hope we've lived up to your expectations, and we'll continue to do our best to do so in the years to come. Stay with us for more.
I love Alberta. I've lived here my whole life and I'm proud of it. I'm proud of our free market, pro-business, low-tax, do-it-yourself attitude. And now, I'm watching my province get destroyed. We've all had hints of the NDP's radical views in the past, but no one actually thought they'd ever run this province. Not even them. And now they are. And the worst is yet to come. I give my sad forecast for Alberta in my new ebook, The Destroyers, Rachel Notley and the NDP's War on Alberta.
Well, welcome to the show. As I mentioned, it's our one-year anniversary, and can you believe it, by coincidence, it's also the moment when the government of Alberta has gone further than any other government in modern history in Canada. I mean, I'm talking about going back 80 years to the Bill Aberhart Socreds and their press acts. Seriously, Rachel Notley has dispatched armed sheriffs and Department of Justice lawyers to keep little Sheila Gunn Reid, a mom of three, out of the legislature. And Sheila joins us now via Skype from Fort Saskatchewan. Great to see you, Sheila.
Hi, Ezra. Good to see you, too.
How are your spirits holding up? I tell you, it's like you're on an FBI most wanted list. They got armed guards coming for you. They got Department of Justice lawyers coming for you. You're more hunted than Hillary Clinton.
I guess so. It's really been a whirlwind. Actually, I'm probably more scrutinized than Hillary Clinton at this point.
You know what? I mean, you and I have known each other not that long, but I've come to know you as an Albertan with a big heart. You got a family, you got 3 kids, you got 1 foot in oil and gas, you got 1 foot in farming, you travel around this province. I mean, you're a real Albertan, you're a mom. I don't find you terrifying. You're not rude in my personal observation. Yet you are so scary to Rachel Notley that she sort of locked herself in the bunker and said, keep that bad woman away. How did you manage to get into her head the way that you have? What was it, do you think?
Well, first of all, we're her loudest critics, and she obviously does not like to hear critics. And then the book. The book came out. Everybody downloaded it. Now everybody's buying it on Amazon, and now we're on a blacklist. So you do the math.
You're on both lists. You're on the bestseller list and the blacklist. Sheila's talking about her book, The Destroyers, which actually hit #1 on Amazon.ca. I think you're right. I think that's when she realized that you were a tougher, and you're not a professional old school journalist. I mean, you didn't go to J school, yet you're not a lifer in the press gallery. I think that's what really bothers her. You're not part of the clique. You're not part of the social circle. You know, I've seen enough of these media party cliques in my life to know there's sort of a group thing think sort of peer pressure. Oh, you can have a point of view, but don't be mean and don't go outside a certain spectrum of criticism. I think because you're not from her social circle, she doesn't know how to control you, so she tries to banish you. That's my psychological theory. What do you think?
Well, there's something at work, because I've been to the legislature plenty since I started with The Rebel. I've covered all the Bill 6 rallies from the steps of the legislature. I was there on budget day. I've been there at other media availabilities with Rachel Notley herself. And then The Destroyers comes out. And now, because we're her loudest critics, she's doing her very best to silence us and me.
Yeah, let's show our viewers one more time what we're talking about. Let's start with a quick clip of when you went to the legislature along with other reporters to cover a joint press conference between Justin Trudeau and Rachel Notley. You were stopped at the door, told you were on a no-go list, and they summoned this guy. Here, play the clip, everybody.
For today's event?
We already spoke to Darcy Henton. He said there should be no problem to come in. What? Sorry, why is that? Sorry, why?
Just for clarification, Darcy Henton is the president of the Alberta Legislature Press Gallery, who said, yeah, just show your credentials, come on in. I mean, show any working journalist can come right on in. And this, I'm not blaming the sheriff. I mean, he obviously didn't make the decision. He obviously didn't want to stick around and try and explain the inexplicable. Sheila, let me show one more thing, and then I'll ask for your comment. We wrote a letter. We had a lawyer wrote a letter to the government and say, what's this about? You got to stop this, confirm that you're not going to do this again. And we got this very terse letter back from a Department of Justice lawyer. Let me read it. Our client's position, our client means the government, that's a weird phrasing. Our client's position remains that your client, the rebel, and those who identify as being connected to your client are not journalists and are not entitled to access media lockups or other such events. Thank you for writing. So little Sheila Gunn Reid, all 100 pounds soaking wet, goes to the legislature with your camera, and they sick an armed sheriff and a Department of Justice lawyer on you. You know what? You should be feeling pretty tough. You know what? I mean, you should be like a 300-pound Incredible Hulk for how much you're scaring them, Sheila. I can't believe it.
Well, did you hear how mean I was in the video? Like, I apologized twice. I could not have been more Canadian and polite.
Well, let's talk for a minute about how this has been received, because you and I made a decision when you were kept out of the legislature. We had that video right away. You had the good sense to keep the camera rolling and you kept your calm. But instead of rushing right out with a video, that's when we got the lawyer, Fred Kozak, very senior media lawyer in Alberta, nonpartisan guy. He works for the CBC, he works for the Globe and Mail, he's well respected. He's not an ideologue, he's just a great lawyer. He wrote a very calm letter. Let's put his letter on the screen for a moment. He wrote a very calm letter to the Premier's office saying, this is the third time this happened to Sheila and Holly Nicholas, our Calgary reporter. Get back to us within a week about what you think. So we were very calm about it. We kept our powder dry. It was only when we got their letter from the Department of Justice that we went public with this. Lauren Gunter reported this in the Edmonton and Calgary Sun. And tell me about the incredible reaction coast to coast, including from journalists who don't really like our political cut. What have they been saying, Sheila?
Well, you know what? I'm not surprised that our people, our rebel people, are supportive of us. The reason they tune into us is because they love free speech and they love a good fight for free speech, just like we do. But the mainstream media has been surprising to me how supportive they are. And I'm glad. I'm glad to see that journalists across the board respect free speech and our access to a free press. It's been really quite refreshing.
Yeah, I want to chime in on that. I mean, people who we criticize have said, look, we may not like Sheila, we might not like Ezra, we might not like The Rebel, but there is a principle here, freedom of the press applies to anyone. You know what? I think some of the real lefties, they think, well, it might feel good to shut down The Rebel, but then the precedent will be set that maybe one day another Stephen Harper or another, Jim Prentice or whatever can shut down a lefty. So I think some of them are thinking, well, what does the precedent mean? What goes around comes around. So they're thinking about their own freedoms, and that's fine. That's the thing about free speech. It's a gift you got to give your opponents if you want it for yourself. Last word to you, Sheila. Do you think we're going to win this one? I mean, put aside the legal merits of the case. I think we're rock solid. We're going to win in the court of law. Do you think we're going to make Rachel Notley blink? She's stubborn, and her hired crew of NDP mercenaries from Toronto and Vancouver are stubborn. And they hate you even more than they hate me. Your book, The Destroyers, made them go nuts. Do you think they will be able to climb down from this position, or do you think they're going to dig in?
Well, it's clear they are digging in. They in their letter, they said anybody associated with The Rebel is not to be considered a journalist. So that would mean William F. Buckley, if he rose from the dead, the government would not consider him a journalist.
Yeah, I mean,
if reputable journalists ever.
Yeah, I mean, if Peter Mansbridge came in and wore a little rebel name tag, I mean, that's anyone connected to. That was so large. But look, they wrote that letter before they knew the public mood. And just today alone, I've seen so many liberals and centrists and lefties and people who don't have a lot of time for you and me, Sheila, saying the government of Alberta is wrong. So I think they've miscalculated. But I also know how stubborn they are. You think they're going to dig in and just weather this, eh?
I do think they are going to dig in and weather this, but the more they dig in, the more they lose in the court of public opinion. And really, isn't that what politics are all about?
Yeah. Well, Sheila, as you know, we are not suing them for any money. We are suing for a declaration by the courts that kicking us out of government events and government property like the legislature is contrary to the Constitution. You cannot say anyone who's conservative or anyone who's a rebel may not attend because we just don't like them. So we are suing for a declaration. We're not going to make money if we win. We're going to make a point. And free speech, as you know, Sheila, it's not free. It's going to cost thousands of dollars, probably tens of thousands of dollars to prosecute this lawsuit all the way. And I because we don't get big bucks from the CBC or like the CBC does, and because we don't have free government lawyers with taxpayers' money like Rachel Notley does, we have to ask our viewers for support. So I'm going to do that right now. And I don't have any shame in doing it because we don't get free money like the CBC or the government. So I'm going to say, folks, if you want to help get Sheila her civil rights, to let her get back into the legislature to report on the news, I'm going to ask for your help so we can prosecute this lawsuit. We've got a great law firm in Edmonton. You can find out more how to give at our website, notleyisabully.ca. You can chip in right there on the website, or there's a snail mail address you can do too. Last word to you, Sheila.
You know what, Ezra? I love this province. I love my job. And my favorite part of my job is telling the stories of the people who live here. And sometimes that takes me to the legislature. And I resent the government stripping me of that right. Yeah.
Well, not if we have anything to say about it, Sheila. We're going to fight back. And so far, it seems like we have a lot of allies. I think we're going to win. And you, my friend, all the stress you're feeling right now, and the sheriffs telling you to get out, and the threatening letters from lawyers, I promise you in due time, you'll laugh about it. I can only imagine the stress on you, because it's like the whole world's on your shoulders. But we got your back here at The Rebel, Sheila. Tens of thousands of Rebel viewers, or hundreds of thousands of Rebel viewers have got your back. And we're going to take this through to the end, and we're on your side. I think you know that.
I do. And I want to thank everybody out there who's showing just unconditional support for what we're doing.
Yeah. Thanks, my friend. I appreciate it. Now go out there and you keep at them. That's the number one way we're going to win.
Will.
You keep reporting on Rachel Notley, whether she likes it or not.
I will. Thanks,
okay,
Ezra.
See you later. Folks, stick around. After the break, we're going to talk to our friend Lauren Gunter, who broke the news of our story in this morning's papers. Stay with us.
Looking for the perfect gift? Did you know TheRebel.media has a store? Make a statement with a t-shirt. Have your morning coffee in a Fearless Travel coffee mug. There's even an Ezra bobblehead. It's a one-stop shop for the perfect gift. And don't forget to pick up something for yourself. Go to TheRebel.media's/store to find out more.
Ontario residents are being hosed on electricity prices. The latest Auditor General's report says we've been overcharged by $37 billion over the last several years. That works out to nearly $2,800 for every man, woman, and child. Why? Mismanagement and bad policy choices from the Ontario Liberals. It's going to cost us billions more in coming years. Energy Minister Bob Chiarelli won't take responsibility. He's lashing out. It's time for Bob to go. If you agree, go to firebob.ca. That's firebob.ca and make your voice heard.
Welcome back. Well, that's Sheila Gunn Reid. You know, she's got a fighting spirit, but I remember how I felt years ago when we published at the Western Standard magazine. Remember, we published the Danish cartoons of the Muslim prophet Mohammed, and all these censors came down on us. And it feels a lot of pressure, even if you're a tough cookie, like Sheila obviously is. And going from my own experience then, I know that your kind words and support, send her an email, Sheila at TheRebel.media. I know how valuable those words of moral support feel when you feel besieged. Now, I think Sheila knows we're going to win this one, but it's not, I mean, it takes some physical courage, frankly, to be faced with an armed sheriff saying, get off. And she kept her cool. Well, that's Sheila, but the man who broke the story this morning in the Sun Media newspapers is our friend, Lauren Gunter, and he joins us now via Edmonton from Skype. How you doing, Lauren? Nice to see you again.
I'm doing well, Ezra.
Well, thank you for writing a thoughtful article in the Edmonton Sun about our predicament. You broke the news, and it has created, I'm going to call it a firestorm. Last I checked on Twitter, there were 33,700 different comments on Twitter about the Rebel. And I obviously haven't read all of them, but looking at opinion leaders, that is journalists on the center and the left, looking at political people, for example, the leader of the left of center Alberta Party, Greg Clark, I think is his name, in Alberta. I just forgot his name for a second there. Everyone's on side for free speech, except for just a few people who hate us too much to acknowledge it. I'm overwhelmed by the response. What's your thought?
Yeah, and I was pleased by that too. I mean, it was instantaneous. As soon as the story broke, we put it online last night just before midnight Mountain Time, and instantly it started trending on Twitter, and lots of people from left, right, and center all jumped in. I mean, David Staples from the Edmonton Journal, who's the municipal affairs columnist there, has been very staunch about it. The former president of the BC Press Gallery, the legislature press gallery in Victoria, appalled by this. I mean, this is just such an appalling and at the same time absolutely clueless act on the NDP. I mean, how did they imagine that this wouldn't come out? And that they wouldn't get smeared with this.
Yeah. Well, we played it cool, which is not like me, Lauren. I mean, when Sheila got shut down, and let's play that clip just for 20 more seconds of her getting shut out of the legislature by an armed cop. And obviously the cop wasn't threatening her, but Sheila's little, this cop was large, a sheriff. Just play that for 1 second to show you what happened to her.
Today's event?
We already spoke to Darcy Henton. He said there should be no problem to come in. What? Sorry, why is that? Sorry, why?
I don't care who you are. That's going to have you shaking a little bit. So we played it cool. We wrote a calm letter to the Premier. We said, take a week, think about this carefully. Is this what you really mean to do? And they wrote back to us and say, yeah, you and all your kind aren't wanted here. So we didn't jump the gun. We didn't go in hot. We went in cool. What do you think is going on in their mind, Lauren? Do you think that maybe they think, well, Ezra and Sheila Gunn Reid, they're so hated, that people will overlook freedom of speech because they'll just want to get back at Ezra and Sheila or something. What do you think was going on in their head?
I think they think everybody thinks about you and Sheila the way they do, which is with disdain and contempt. But clearly that isn't the case. I mean, first of all, you're going to have an awful lot of fans and supporters who like what you do and want you there to cover this. But the heartening thing for me were the number of people who would start a tweet by saying, "Can't stand Levant, but..."
Yeah.
And that's really what the reaction you need to have is you have to have this understanding, no matter what the political affiliation or the ideology of the writer is, that this is simply wrong. It's so dangerous in a democracy to let the government decide who is and isn't a journalist. I mean, Darcy Henton, as Sheila mentioned there, the president of the press gallery in the Alberta legislature, he said it was fine as long as you have your accreditation from the Rebel showing that you're working for them. Come on in. It's a public building. This is and Darcy also said that it's the convention in Alberta that everyone who perceives themselves to be a reporter is allowed to come into these events. And the amazing thing about that event that she was being barred from, of course, it was the press conference with Premier Rachel Notley and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau in the rotunda of the legislature. It wasn't even in the press room. It's in the most public area of a public building at the core of Alberta's government. It's just staggering to me. I'm stumbling here for words. I'm stammering because I just can't understand how the government thinks you can get away with that.
That's a very good point. And this NDP government not only said we will be more open and accountable and transparent than those evil Tories in the past, but they made a big show of throwing open the gates of the legislature, the People's House, during their swearing in. So not only are they not living up to their new higher standards of accountability, really you'd have to go back to the days of Bible Bill Aberhart and his Press Act that allowed him to commandeer pages of the newspapers of the day to find a more authoritarian approach. I just find it incredible. But I have to say, Lauren, even as I'm sitting here, I've been, just before you came on, I looked at my email and I see that the Premier's communications director, Cheryl Oates, a former journalist herself, is still digging in and saying, oh, they're not real journalists. Like, they're digging in, even despite this overwhelming outcry from other journalists. I don't know. I mean, I don't think they value freedom as much as they should, but I think that their political compass is broken. I think they're like deep in a bunker, only listening to people who echo back to them what they want to hear. How do you think this is going to end? Do you think I'm really going to have to go all the way through a multi-year court battle to get a judge to open those doors for me?
No, I don't think you are. My guess would be by the end of this week, they will relent because there's simply too much pressure, even from people that they admire in the press. For instance, there are two very well-known sort of lefty gadflies who've been online reporting since way back in Ralph Klein's day. They don't bar either of those guys, and they shouldn't bar either of them. I mean, they both write seriously about these issues as your reporters do. The thing that I found most appalling about Jason Fung's letter, and Fung's the lawyer from Alberta Justice who wrote and said, he said, your client, in this case he's writing to your lawyer, and he means you, and no one associated with him are journalists. But the first time I met you was in journalism. You were, we were working together at Alberta Report back in the early 90s, and since that time, you owned a Western Report. You worked for the National Post. Thankfully, luckily for you, you didn't have to own the National Post. And you worked for the Sun papers and Sun News. You've been a journalist as long as I have. So, maybe you've said on tape someplace, I don't feel like a journalist. I don't look at myself as a journalist or whatever. I think that's what the NDP are hanging to. But they simply don't have the authority. No matter what it is that you or Sheila or anybody else who works for the Rebel has said, they simply don't have the authority to declare you a journalist or not.
Well, I have on occasion in the past said I'm not a reporter. I'm an opinion journalist. But even that, I mean, these days I do more reporting than I ever have. We break news. We do access to information requests. I mean, I'm generally not like a Johnny on the spot, breaking news, car accident, fire reporter. Right. But I'm a journalist, an opinion journalist, like in Alberta, Don Braid writes columns, you write columns, Rex Murphy, obviously a journalist. I mean, but this is sort of, you and I may disagree what a reporter or a journalist is, but that's for ordinary people to think. It's not for the government to say, on our whim, you're banned.
Anybody like Sheila or Holly who are prepared to sit in a 3-hour technical briefing on oil and gas taxes, they get to be journalists if they want to.
Yeah.
The thing I find that's funny about this is, of course, and you may have mentioned this before I came on, your site now is one of the top sites for Albertans to go to find news and opinion. That's increasingly happening, where people have their own sites, and some of them are very successful. Blazing Cat Fur. I mean, places like that are very, very popular online. And so this is also a generational thing, I think. And it's so funny because the NDP think of themselves as so young and hip and with it, know what the young people are doing. Yeah. And here is an online source of news and opinion, and they're shutting it out because it doesn't strike them as the traditional kind of journalist.
Yeah. A phrase I use more and more, Lauren, is that we're the other side of the story. I never say to anyone, stop reading other news. I read the CBC websites. I read the left-wing Toronto Star. I never tell people don't read. I read them. I say come to us for the other side of the story. And I think that Albertans want that choice. Even if we are regarded as a bit dissident or contrarian or right-wing or rough, so what? That's part of the healthy spectrum of debate. I was reminded by Colby Kosh, a great journalist from Edmonton, that it used to be that media were actually owned outright by different political parties. I forgot about that about a century and a half ago. That was the real tradition. It's only more recently that they said, oh, we're pure objective. We do reporting, we do commentary, we do activism. That's as journalistic as anything else. Anyway, I feel like I'm over-defending myself here, but it's a shocking situation. Last word to you, Lauren. Go ahead.
You were making a good point there. That you read the Star, you listen to the CBC, you listen to all the people from the other side, and as long as we have the freedom to do that, the freedom to turn on or turn off a source, to throw out a paper we don't like, then I'm not going to say that the people from those outlets should be barred. I mean, I don't like what the CBC reports most of the time. I don't like what the Star reports. That I have objections to a lot of the left of center media in the country. But I'm not suggesting that they should be barred from press conferences and lockups.
Yeah.
But it's staggering, really staggering.
I hope they change their mind. I fear we might have to take them all the way to court. That's how it was when I fought the Danish cartoon issue with the Human Rights Commission. It took me almost 3 years. We'll see if the NDP are faster learners than that. Lauren Gunter, great to see you again. Thanks for your help today.
All right.
All right. That's Lauren Gunter of the Edmonton Sun. Stay with us. Your viewer feedback, including lots of tweets on this issue, after these short words.
So open-minded that the brains have fallen out.
What's the point that you're making?
The point that I'm making is that if you're going to propose a massive overhaul to the way the economy is developed in terms of carbon tax, cap and trade, other forms like that, it helps to have some science that is in fact settled.
We've heard you loud and clear. You can't get enough Canadian conservative news and opinion. Why not check out our blog? It's all your favorite conservative bloggers together on a page called The Megaphone. Go to TheRebel.media's/TheMegaphone or click on the Megaphone menu from our main page to check it out. Welcome back. All our viewer feedback today is about Sheila Gunn Reid and Holly Nicholas, our two Alberta reporters, being banned, officially blacklisted by the government of Alberta from any events where media are normally allowed to attend. This is outrageous. The fact that it's being implemented by armed sheriffs and Department of Justice lawyers just adds to the crazy, but that's Rachel Notley. Here, let me read to you some feedback, and I'm going to choose some tweets from regular folks and also some from left of center or liberal journalists who are so appalled by Notley that they're actually coming to our defense, which I think is interesting because a lot of these liberals, they don't like our content much, but they understand that free speech and freedom of the press is for all Canadians. Okay, let's start with Jesse Brown, who runs Canadaland, a left-wing site. He says, whatever you think of The Rebel, this is appalling. Government has no place deciding who is and isn't a journalist. I agree, and Jesse himself has proven that you can do great things online only. I don't agree with him on everything substantively, but that's the future of journalism. Charlotte Finn writes, NDP Liberal Party, big bad Ezra Levant scares you? Oh, poor babies. He exposes and challenges you. Long live freedom of speech. Well, it was actually Sheila Gunn Reid who terrified the NDP government. And she's smaller than me and much more polite than me, but she packs a wallop because she provides journalism and criticism and skepticism to the Alberta government that they just can't stand. Next tweet is from Nora Laredo, who says, there's also a difference between saying Ezra Levant is a hack bully and not a journalist, and Levant should be banned from public spaces. Again, I understand why I'm a lightning rod, I always am, but it was Sheila Gunn Reid and Holly Nicholas who were booted. And those are working journalists who were exposing what Rachel Notley's doing on the ground. It's obvious they've gone under Notley's skin. Here's a Twitterer called Mama Merkel who wrote, censorship is not acceptable, Miss Notley, I should say. Someone named Not Nenshi wrote, I wish we'd been able to remove the whole Alberta NDP. Well, I think 3.5 years from now, Albertans will do that en masse. Jeremy tweets, pretty sure I woke up in an alternate universe. I checked Twitter and everyone is defending Ezra Levant. Well, and that's my point. It's not because suddenly the whole world is conservative like I am. It's that even liberals say, yikes, if they can silence and censor Levant or The Rebel or Sheila Gunn Reid or Holly Nicholas today, maybe they can come for us tomorrow. If they can suddenly say, oh, credentials and accreditation to bar us, why couldn't they do that for any other journalist? Peter Mansbridge didn't go to journalism school. Why don't you ban him? You see my point about a precedent? Dan J. says, The Rebel are not journalists. They are conservative commentators. They are not media to the Alberta government. They are the opposition. Well, first of all, being an opposition is a legitimate role for the media to play, but you said we're commentators. Well, what do you think a commentator is? It's a type of journalist. Not all journalists are objective reporters. Some journalists are photographers, some are editors, some are hard news, some are, I suppose, a weather predictor is a sportscaster is a journalist. We're commentators. It's a type of journalism. Here's one from Alex Boutillier. I think he's with the Toronto Star, if I recall. He says, hey, Alberta Press Gallery, is The Rebel an accredited organization? But accredited by whom, Alex? I mean, that's the thing. A doctor is accredited by the College of Physicians and Surgeons, a lawyer by the Law Society. There is no professional cartel that says who can and can't be a journalist. You're a journalist if you write the stories of the day. You just poof, you're a journalist. There are no credentialing, and we don't believe in that in Canada. This isn't Venezuela or Iran where journalists have to register with the government. Don Martin from CTV says, the Alberta Press Gallery should be fighting back hard on this, not the government's place to banish The Rebel. Don, perfect example of an establishment liberal media party guy, but he knows they ban Sheila or me today, they can ban him tomorrow. Ishmael Darrow from BuzzFeed says, not good. The Rebel says its journalists have been barred from covering the Alberta legislature. And what's interesting is that Darrow is, like Jesse Brown, he's an all-digital journalist. I mean, think about it. The Huffington Post, Vice.com. A lot of the new media doesn't exist on printed paper. It's not on regular TV. So if we start saying, well, what are your credentials, Sonny? Well, the problem is the governments can blacklist anyone they want. Listen, I do not for a moment apologize for the fact that Sheila Gunn Reid and Holly Nicholas and we out here at the world headquarters of The Rebel take a very tough line on Rachel Notley. She's destroying the province, in my opinion. And having an opinion is part of being an opinion journalist. We at The Rebel do news, we do commentary, and sometimes we do activism. And that's all legitimate journalism. And if you disagree, well, that's fine. You can click away from us or you can call us names. But it is not okay for a government of the province of Alberta to dispatch armed sheriffs and Department of Justice lawyers to blackball us simply because they disagree. You know, the event that Sheila went to on February 3rd, as Lauren Gunter said, was in the rotunda of the great legislature of the province of Alberta, literally the people's place. It is the heart of democracy. It is where MLAs from every different party can meet. And Rachel Notley herself made a big deal about throwing open the doors when she was sworn in as premier. The party called the NDP does not own that building, and they do not own the government of Alberta. That's what this is about. We will sue the government of Alberta, not for money. We're not looking for any money. We are looking for a declaration by the courts that what they have done is unconstitutional. What's my accreditation for starting a media company? You can Google it. It's called the Canadian Constitution, freedom of the press. If you haven't had a chance to check it out yet, go to notleyisabully.ca. Notleyisabully.ca. You will see our letter to the government of Alberta complaining about their blacklisting. You will see their shocking letter in reply. You will see the short video clip of the sheriff, and you will be able to sign our petition demanding that Rachel Notley back down and scrap her blacklist, her enemies list. And if you want to help us fight this lawsuit, we could use the help. You know why? Rachel Notley obviously has all the taxpayer resources that she can muster, plus hundreds of lawyers who work for her in the Department of Justice. We, on the other hand, have to pay our bills ourselves, obviously. If you want to help us fight, whether you're on the right or on the left, you can agree that we all have freedom of the press in Canada. That's it for today, our anniversary day. Let me end on a happy note. Listen, we're 1 year strong. Millions of people have watched us. Rachel Notley might not like that, but a lot of other people do, and I hope you're one of them. Once again, from all of us here at World Headquarters, thanks for tuning in, and we hope you'll join us tomorrow and for many years to come. Until we see you next, keep fighting for freedom. Bye-bye.